When you get to a certain point, things become more about your time and creating systems that can help your gym be successful, that doesn't just 100% rely on you. And honestly, like I can do, Facebook ads, kind of, right? Am I going to be in there full time? Like, do I want to do what Blake does? No way, right? That's why I hired you guys. Like, I don't, it's because like we talked about in, I think, the previous episodes, like, culturally, I've got to be on the floor. I've got to be with my coaches. I got to be in my community. I've got stuff I've got to be doing, right? I do not have time to go in there and A/B test which images are working, or A/B test this and A/B test that. And to be frank, I don't have enough money to blow on like testing stuff, right?
You're an inspiration to our entire organization.
Welcome to the Gym Marketing Made Simple podcast. We're going to be talking the done-for-you marketing and sales strategies proven to work with boutique fitness gyms to increase quality lead flow and grow your revenue. Don't try to be a professional marketer and waste tons of money. Let the experts at Lasso do it for you. And now, here are your hosts, Blake Ruff and Sherman Merricks.
All right, guys, we have another great episode. We have our guest on here, Jeff Binek, again, right? He's been on before. But today we're going to talk about something that I know Jeff is passionate about and he's pretty good at too. We're going to talk about marketing for quote unquote bigger gyms, right? So this episode is specifically for gyms 200 plus members, right? Because I think that sort of consider a bigger gym in today's space and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff that we'll be talking about is for gyms that are 200 plus. So if you aren't there, you can still tune in and learn so that when you get there, but if you're there, definitely tune in because we're going to give you some tips, some insight, some mindset stuff. But again, Jeff, thanks for hanging out with us, buddy.
Yeah, for sure, man. Looking forward to this. This is one of my favorite topics.
So, tell us a little bit about your gym. How many members do you have? How long have you had the gym?
Yeah, so we're about 450 members. We do adults and kids. We've been open for 14 years now.
Gotcha. Okay. So, let's talk about sort of the different level, sort of through your progression. Then we're going to jump into it. When you started the gym, you started with 0 people, then you sort of grow it from there. But once you hit 200, what was what was your mindset? Were you like, oh my gosh, I've made it? Or you're like, okay, that's good. I want more. Like, what was sort of your mindset? Because I think that 200 number is sort of, hey, that's sort of the top of the mountain for most folks. So like, what was your mindset?
Yeah, we had crazy sticking points. I mean, I remember those vividly. Like 2012 to 14, we were between that 185 and 200, and we were just hard stuck. And we had some of like the coaches that I actually started the gym with, who were good, like lifelong friends of mine, ended up moving to the West Coast and went up to New York City to pursue other things in their lives, and kind of had this moment where it was like, okay, like, what do we do? Do we professionalize this a little bit? Are we trying to get beyond 200? What does that kind of look like? How do we hire people? So we had some stuff we had to correct. At 200, we weren't charging right to be able to pay staff what they needed to. So we had to kind of course correct that. We weren't doing any marketing efforts. And I think a big reason for us that we started to kind of stall at that 200 mark is that's that mark. If you're looking at like a 3 or 4% retention, where we were organically getting that, 6 to 8, maybe a little bit more than that from a new client perspective. But when you get to 200 and you're at 3 to 4% retention, that's 6 to 8 out the door just from moving away, graduating, changing jobs, whatever it might be organically every month as well. So those just kind of net out and you're kind of even Steven. And so, that for us was a kind of a nasty sticking point. As we started to transition a little bit beyond that, I remember thinking like, okay, we just got to level up. Right. And so for us at the time, we were doing a lot of the stuff that a lot of gyms in 2012 and 13 and 14 were doing. We were doing either straight to class, group on ramp, some of those kinds of things. We weren't creating real sticky relationships with people. And we like I said, we were undercharging. So we transitioned. We started doing a lot of personal training at that time. So we shifted our onboarding package to 6 personal training sessions at that time. We started, because of that, our coaches saw a pretty good increase in pay. We also saw that those clients stuck around a lot better. We had a lot better relationships with them. And then we were able to reinvest some of that because we were doing a little bit better. We had fixed some of our pricing stuff. We were able to reinvest that into some marketing. And that was when I started. That was when Facebook advertising was just kind of starting to fire up there. And so I started taking some courses and doing some stuff and doing real rudimentary like Facebook advertising stuff early. And I can't even remember doing good or bad. I just remember thinking like just being a nerd trying to, and I remember I felt so weird. Like we're going to put $100 behind this, man. It's like $100 towards that. Like we don't even know. And like, we thought it was such a big deal. And so that stuff was, fun to learn. But, when we started doing that, we did see some success early. And I think it was hard not to see success that early in Facebook advertising. But we started to see some success. And then that actually naturally started to bring us up to like 250, 280, because we were fixing some of our sticky issues with the personal training. We fixed our prices so we could afford to market a little bit more. And then with that added revenue, we were able to actually like invest in our coaches, invest in our facility, and, start to like, really, I guess you would say, separate ourselves a little bit from the competition, right? We were the only gym in the area that had full-time coaches. We were the only gym in the area that had like 2 workout spaces, different things that you could do there. We were really focused on quality. So we were always reinvesting in nice new equipment. So some of those things really opened themselves up as we started to get past that 200 mark. But those were some of the things that we had to kind of fix and put in place to start kind of moving beyond that mark, get past that sticking point.
Okay. So okay, cool. So 200, then you start doing a certain thing. So my next question is, because I always wanted to sort of know this, because me, like I've never had a big gym, 200 plus members, but for me, like involved in the gym, when someone leaves, it sort of hurts my heart, right? Like even I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I hate to see him leaving. But with 200 members, right? Let's talk about the churn rate. Even if your churn number is great, you're still losing X amount of people per month. Now I'm asking sort of a personal question. Do you eventually get over that? It meaning like, no, you don't. Yeah.
No. So what I would tell you, honestly, like I've thought about this one a lot, and I actually talked to my business partner. I go, the day that I do stop caring about this is probably the day I shouldn't run a gym anymore. Like that's kind of my thing is you really want to, I do think a big part of coaching and owning gyms is you are believing in people's best possible potential for themselves, right? Like that. And so then when people quit on you for reasons that aren't like real reasons, right? So like they're not like, hey, I got a new job in California, I'm leaving. Like that's obviously you have to cancel, right? But if they just quit on you, it's so hard to take, because that person, if they really just like buckled down and invested in your system and really went all in, that they could fix all of their ailments, right? Like whatever it is, socially, emotionally, physically, that if they were to buy in, that they could be successful, and they just didn't give themselves that opportunity. And there's nothing more devastating than a true coach. Like, and I coach, basketball, football, lacrosse, I coach kids. There's nothing more devastating to a born coach than somebody who doesn't live up to their potential, and just watching that happen right in front of you. It's so hard to take. And so, no, I mean, and it's hard as you get bigger too, because it's more, right? It's like you're dealing with it more and more frequently. And so I put some buffers in place. I try, we have a GM where she handles all the client movement stuff. So I'm not necessarily always getting the email directly from the person. A lot of times that'll kind of go through her, and then her and I'll have a discussion at towards the end of the month, where I kind of get like shotgun blasted with all of the shells at once. Right. And it's like one emotional moment, and then like I can kind of move on from it a little bit. So it doesn't have the same sting as, I think one of the big things that owners do that's like, man, it's like, what do they call it? Flailing yourself, right? Is they like are checking their email at like 9 o'clock at night, and they're getting these cancellation emails right before they go to bed. And dude, that's the stuff like you got to you do have to put some buffers in place. I think if it is something that hits you emotionally, just know that, right? Stu's gone big on this, like, don't be emotional with blah, 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 all that stuff. And he talks about those things all the time. But, I think being emotional is good. I think caring about people is good, and never losing that hope that people can fulfill their potential in your facility. I think it's really important.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Well, good to know. Cause like people don't get it, man. We pour a lot into our communities and stuff. And like you're saying, like I'm sure we all have, we've owned it. Like we'll see someone that left the gym for whatever reasons. Most of the time it's good reasons. They, whatever, not on bad terms. Then you see them and they're, that much more overweight. And then they're slightly embarrassed to see you. And like my heart just breaks. Like,
yeah, it kills
exactly.
you, man.
I'm not mad at you. And then I'm like, come back. Like, I'll help you. Like, come back. But yeah. So, but
my boy Drew, I know exactly. Like, I got one client right in my head right now, man. He was one of my favorite clients, and he just quit on me. And I still see him all the time, all around the community as a teacher locally.
Yeah.
And I just love the dude. He's one of my favorite people, but he's struggling. And it's tough.
Drew,
it's tough to
Drew,
see.
if you're listening, go back and see Jeff at Friendship. He misses you.
Oh man, it'd be my dream.
No, I do think, but something you said there is you have to know yourself a little bit too, right? So like, if it emotionally drains you to the point that like you just can't do other work, and you also, like you said, like I had a girl that handled it all, and then if it was something that we could fix, she brought it to my attention, right? Yeah. But if other than that, if it's like moving and stuff, like even that like still stresses you out. You're like, crap, because it's always just a numbers game. Like, let's be honest, just a numbers game, which probably going to lead us to a next point of marketing with a big gym. But like, if it stretches you out so much as an owner, like have somebody dedicated, a GM or somebody like that, that's really good with people, that like they do like, hey, okay, this is what we're going to try A, B first. If it doesn't work, they bring it to your attention. Because man, it can be, for me, it was just exhausting.
Well, and you can hire, VAs for not much money to sort and sift through your emails for you and give you kind of one dump on like a, whatever, like pick your favorite part of your week or something like that. Like, hey, a Thursday at 10 a.m. I get all of the emails I have to do and I bulk them in. But there is a discipline structure, I think, to that. We had a gym owner locally who was super emotional about stuff, and they ended up closing. They didn't end up making it. And I think a huge part of it was because she just emotionally couldn't handle the swings. And if it's going to mean that your community loses the opportunity to have your gym because the emotional stuff is so hard for you, then I think, a big part of your task list should really be to start to think about how can I put things in place, just like you would, if you have a client who's snacking all the time late at night, you're going to try to start working on putting systems in place so that they don't do that, right? Like it's the same coaching that I would give you for that is if it's going to end your business career, then start putting some buffers in place to help you with it, because it's tough.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to say something, I'll ask a question here, but I think the best piece of advice I ever got was you need to go into the mentality that everybody's going to leave your gym at some point. And if you go into it with that mental space that like sooner or later everybody's going to leave, it's just the cycle that it happens, and stuff that you just can't even control. They might like to try something else, and like they loved your gym. They just like, I don't do CrossFit, and I owned 2 CrossFit gyms before. Honestly, I don't want to lay in the bathroom doing a 2-minute Fran to sub 2 minute for 45 minutes. Like act like I'm dying. I competed in sports my life. I'm all done with it. But to your point, what you said about like losing earlier and organic and gaining, we just literally just got off a call with a guy that does $80,000 a month. He's like, or he did 90 in February and has tracked down to 81 at this point because of the reason that you're mentioning. He just can't organically, and I've said this over and over, like you can't organically, at some point you come to the threshold of like your organic is not going to go past your churn, right? And then so the only element that you can do is paid marketing at that point, because you have to reach people outside of your little following. And because all these,
here we go. I already know where it's going.
Here we go. Readjust.
These so many mentors like, oh, you don't need paid marketing, blah, blah, blah. But like, why do you think F45, Orange Theory, Metabolic, all these guys are spending $75 to $150 per day? because they
Well,
want to keep growing. And that's why they're beating your gyms. That's why Orange Theory opens up with 200, 500 members, right? So I think, what point, I think for you, I guess, what point for you did you realize, all right, there's no other element that I can do. Like, I have to do paid marketing. And like, what advice would you give, you're a super smart dude. What advice would you give to gym owners that are listening to that 200, like, to look at their numbers and say, okay, this is the point that I need to start investing in marketing?
Yeah, and I'll back it up even more. I think a lot of it goes to beliefs, right? What are the beliefs you tell yourself and what's important to you, right? Because this week actually, with the affiliate owners getting price raised and all that stuff and that discussion happening, you start to see the way that people think about gyms and the way that they think about money and the way that they think about growth and all those things. And there are people who think that, gyms who do marketing and who grow and who raise prices and who do these things, they think they're greedy and they're focused on money and they're focused on all these things. My belief is that if we do better financially and we grow and we do these things the right way, we get opportunities to help people who want help. And I think that we can do it better than anybody else, right? Like, that's my belief. That's the system I've created. That's the gym I've created. That's the coaches that I work my ass off to train, all those things. And I believe that if they go somewhere else, that they will have a lower likelihood of being successful, or their success will be capped at a certain point. So when you start from that belief, it's our imperative to try to help as many people as possible, right? So when you kind of start there, so that for me was why I wanted to get beyond 200. Yes. It's not, it's not like a greed thing, a profit thing, a money thing, and a lot of it, like from a profitability standpoint, it doesn't necessarily change as a percentage, right? It just is a percentage of a bigger bucket, right? So when we think about that, that I think is always kind of the first thing. And so if you don't believe that, to Blake's point, then yeah, sure, you don't need to do paid marketing. You'll hit your even Steven number. You'll hit your equilibrium. So what you're saying is that reversion to the mean ideology, right? Where if my limitation is I can bring in 20 leads or 30 leads a month, and of those I can sign up 5 or 6, then you have a hard limit on how many total members your gym can have. And the only thing that can change that is changing those top of the funnel numbers. So changing how many leads you get, how many appointments you book, and how many new clients you can sign up. Right? You can sit there till you're blue in the face and work on retention, but that doesn't stop people from moving and changing jobs and all that stuff. And so you will always go back to that equilibrium, and everybody's equilibrium is just a little bit different based on their area, their foot traffic, their organic traffic, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, everybody's got an equilibrium. The only thing that'll help you break past that is changing something, right? If you don't change something, nothing's going to change. And so, what you can change is most big businesses. If you look at any other business in the world, doesn't matter. And I own a handful of other businesses. Every business has this thing called a marketing budget, right? Yeah. And for some reason, gyms think that they're like immune to this, when in reality, of all the industries that you could possibly think about in the world, the gym industry is probably number one, the most competitive, and probably number two, probably one of the most ones that needs to market, right? Like, it's a marketing business, right? Yeah. And so it's asinine to me that we think that you can just not have a marketing budget, and like, if we build it, they will come and just we'll be fine. All this stuff. It's an asinine way to think about business, and it doesn't exist anywhere else. And honestly, if you talk to other businesses and other business owners and say that, hey, we don't do any marketing, like, people will say you're freaking crazy. Like, if you talk to lawn care, landscape company, like whatever, it doesn't matter, any service business industry, it blows people's mind when we talk about marketing budgets even being at 1%. I remember we hired a marketing company. We started a second gym, and they were like, what's your guys' marketing budget? They were expecting to hear 10%, 8%. Yeah. That's the type of companies they work with. I'm like, oh, like maybe 1%. I'm like, what? Yeah. Like, well, that's not enough money to do anything. Yeah. Right. And so I think, there's some limiting beliefs in the ecosystem around marketing generally, but also around how to break past some of these barriers. And so, same kind of idea. If we don't have capacity right now to get past our current number from like an actual, like, we run 13 to 14 classes a day. I've got 6 full-time staff. We've got 42 people in sessions every, main hour. Yeah. you name it. Like we are, if you were to say, if you guys wanted to be marketing bros and be like, hey, could you handle 50 new gym clients this month? I literally am like, no, like literally we cannot handle that. So then I can tailor my marketing spend. Once you get good at this, right, you can tailor it and tweak those dials perfectly to where, hey, I know at 450, if I have a 3% churn rate every month, I'm losing 14 to 15 people. So if I back up the truck, I need 60 leads every month. Going down the funnel, 60 leads turns into 25 discovery calls. 25 discovery calls turns into 18 in-person appointments. 18 in-person appointments turns into 15 sales. My 15 sales is +1 to my 14 cancellations on average. And now I'm a +1 at the end of the year. I'm +12. I actually think this year we were +17. And that is like the very moderate growth that I'm looking for at this stage in business, right? And so once you learn how to play the numbers game, it's just about tweaking those dials. If I was in growth mode, I would take that marketing spend way up. I'd try to get 100, 200, 300 leads, and I would start to try to make sure I can fulfill that amount of leads first, right? And then, you go from there. But it's like you said, it's just a numbers game up to a certain point. You'll hit your equilibrium, and then the only way to blow past that equilibrium is either improve and change your systems, improve your churn to a point, and then start to run marketing stuff.
Yeah, I think one thing I always say is the worst business is one that relies on referrals every month. If your business is like, oh, I'm just gonna, Susie Q is gonna bring me 5 this month. Like if you're like, and she doesn't, you're screwed, right? So like having predictable every single month, and this is something like me and you've talked about, and I think it's crazy because all these other big businesses have marketing, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like gym owners feel like every month I gotta make, even if I make $1,000 on a $2,000 investment, it wasn't worth it. And I'm like, where in the world do you get $1,000 from $2,000? So talk about for you, because you're really good in this, and we just made that 20-minute video, and I'm sure you talked about this in there. Is how do you look at like how do you tell gym owners that like, hey, your investment, like you don't have to make it like. It's the reoccurring part of it, right? That it compounds on itself. So how do you look at that as like, a successful gym that you are, rather than being like dollars and cents every month? I have to put out, $2,250, $3,000 or whatever you put out each month. And I got to make $4,000. If I didn't make double my money, it wasn't worth it. Right. So what's kind of your mindset with that?
Yeah, we've been around 14, 15 years. We've had the same name, the same location. We've been around a long time. So, association and referrals and some of those stuff, it's not that we don't get them, but like, we have to kind of start what I think about as new webs, right? So cold traffic for us is great because if somebody comes in from cold traffic and they know literally nobody in our ecosystem or our environment, well, they've got, 30 coworkers, 7 friends and family, sons and daughters. Those sons and daughters play for sports teams that might not be associated with any of our others. And it becomes this new web of potential referrals, right? And so I think there's a bunch of metrics that you can start to pay attention to in terms of moving your business forward that don't directly hit your bottom line in month 1, right? So I do think that starting those new webs, right, is huge. Our very first month that we ran with Lasso, we signed up a bunch of people, but there were 2 couples, and both the women came in and signed up, right? So we signed up. So on the growth scorecard, it shows 2, right? Not on the growth scorecard necessarily then is their husbands both joined, right? So now we're at 4. Okay. They have collectively across those, both of their kids come now too, right? So take on 4 more, right? And then collectively the referrals, their kids have brought like 5 friends. They themselves have referred their neighbors, right? And so I think across the total ecosystem, just those 2 women signing up has more than paid for when you look at like the sprawling web. And you can sit there and say, well, Facebook advertising didn't bring those people in. Our systems or, our referrals did, but it's like, but you wouldn't have met those 2 people, right, if you weren't running the paid advertising, right? Yep. And so I think that's one thing that you can look at. I think the other stuff that we look at is like, I want to look at web traffic. There's people who are stalking our site, who are reading our stuff, who, otherwise wouldn't have. There's people who follow us on social media, right? So when we start posting a bunch of our content, there's people who follow my podcast, because when you're a new lead, they start to get that we send them a podcast. If they're not signing up in our discovery call automation, they get access to our podcast. I have people who be like, hey man, like, I didn't know about joining, but I listened to like your first 10 podcast episodes and I just love what your community is about. I'm on board. And then those members are super sticky. So there's all kinds of other ways. And a lot of this stuff is just going to test how good you are as a whole, right? And if you're doing everything right, then the paid marketing is just gas on a fire. And I hate to say, like, I don't really pay attention to long-term ROI. At the end of after a few years, I just look at it and I go, we're in a really good spot. I'm super happy. Things are working, right? Like, let's not interrupt the things that are working really well, right? And that's not to say that we don't try to make things better. Like, we've improved the automations a ton, right? To get, make sure that they're getting our blog, our YouTube channel, our podcast, right? And those are things that we do really well. There's making sure our referrals, our reviews, right? Like, we've got, I think, 450, like 300 5-star reviews on Google. So you look up other gyms in the area. I think the next top one's like a 4.8 star Orange Theory down the road that's got like 31 reviews. Yeah. So people like will come in and be like, you guys have more 5-star reviews than I've ever seen like any business ever have. It's like, yeah. Fucking blow you away. Let's go. Right. So I think those are the things. It's like, if you're doing everything right, then paid marketing is just absolute gas on the fire. And the numbers, I mean, on top of that too, once you start playing with this stuff, you can acquire profitably. Like, you can design your systems and your onboarding packaging to acquire profitably if you're that type of business. Not all businesses are, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of, 5 for 5s and frees and these kinds of things that you are not acquiring profitably. That's a lot harder to figure out. I think the long-term ROI of those, you have to have really dialed in LTVs and ARMs and all that stuff. But for a lot of CrossFit gyms or gyms that are doing personal training onboarding, like, just make your initial package, make sure you acquire them profitably, even if it's $5 in month one.
Yeah. I think
you can run all those numbers.
One thing you said in that kind of overview is not all the time is marketing black and white, right? Of like ROI, like you said, I got 2 from there, 5 from there. Like, a lot of times, so many of these gym owners, and I always compare it to a Coke commercial, right? In the Super Bowl, they don't go and say, okay, next week after the Super Bowl, did we sell more Coca-Cola than we did the previous week? No. Or I'm sorry, what came from the Super Bowl? No, they don't say that. Is revenue up? Yes, it worked. That's it. Right? Like, and there's some things we can't control, your churn, right? Like, if you have a crappy service and like your classes are not good, that's on you. But like, if you're gaining more members than you were previously before marketing, the simple answer is it's working, and you should keep doing it and keep doing everything else. Right. So, Sherman, what do you got, man?
Well, and it'll highlight too. I mean, I think that's the nice thing is, while it is gas on the fire, if it's not gas on the fire for you, what it's doing is it's highlighting your hole. Like, it's highlighting your weakness as a facility, and where you are not excellent. Right. And that's, I think, a tough pill to swallow for people sometimes, where it's like, oh, hey, we signed, you look at some of these scorecards, like we signed up 26, 31, 19, 22 in 4 consecutive months. And I'm like, holy shit, are you guys at capacity? And they're like, no. Like, what do you mean? Not even close. I'm like, you signed up 80 people in 4 months. How are you not at capacity? I don't understand. Yeah. Like, that doesn't even compute with me. Like, if we signed up that many people in a month, my classes would be full and waitlisted. I have people canceling because they can never get into a session. Like, I don't understand. So there's a problem on the back end that is getting highlighted here that we need to take a look at. Right. So it kind of goes both ways. It's you're either failing and learning or you're succeeding in spades.
Yeah, no, I think that, from this episode, like, one of the big things is that you have to, as your gym gets bigger, you have to have a real marketing plan because of the churn rate, because of nothing else, and like, this is one of the things, Jeff, like, when we start working with you, I was like, all right, is this guy going to be good or is he going to be bad? Like, everyone comes to us sort of saying the same thing as you. Hey, listen, I don't need to make ROI 1 month. Like, I need to make sure that this is a system that can help my gym grow and sort of be on autopilot. Like, we love to hear that, right? Like, we don't love a gym coming to us saying, hey, if this doesn't work, I'm going to have to shut down the gym. I need 48 new members over the next 2 months. We're like, that's not a good sign. But, one thing that we've seen, and like we've actually implemented some of this stuff in Lasso from working with you, is like, okay, if you're really dialed in, like, we can tell you you could tell us right now from the time you started with us to up to last month, how much revenue are you making monthly from just the people that came from the ads? Like, you keep up with data like that. And I think at times, so many people, they really don't keep up with the data. It's sort of like feelings and, this and that. So I got to stop. And I'm like, guys, like, we got to level up as an industry,
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part is, like you said, leveling up as an industry. It's when you get to a certain point, things become more about your time and creating systems that can help your gym be successful. That doesn't just 100% rely on you. And honestly, like, I can do Facebook ads. Kind of, right? Am I going to be in there full time? Like, do I want to do what Blake does? No way, right? That's why I hired you guys. Like, it's because like we talked about in, I think, the previous episodes, like, culturally, I've got to be on the floor. I've got to be with my coaches. I got to be in my community. I've got stuff I've got to be doing, right? I do not have time to go in there and A/B test which images are working, or A/B test this and A/B test that. And to be frank, I don't have enough money to blow on like testing stuff, right? Yeah. And so once I started to find that, once Facebook ads started to get really competitive, I was trying to do that stuff, and it takes so much time. And then you're sitting behind a computer screen and you're not in the weeds with your coaches, with your clients, with making sure that the back end fulfillment is where it needs to be, making sure your sales and the lead nurture is where it needs to be. So this allows me to focus on the stuff that I want to focus on, and still checks the block to make sure that I'm able to get the marketing done so that we can be where we need to be. So, I mean, it's been amazing. I'm super thankful for you guys for doing it. It's not easy work. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it allows us to be super, super mission focused and just take those leads that come in and just, hey, listen, if you're on the ship, awesome. You saw our ad. That's great. Like, get on board. We're going to knock your socks off. And it's kind of like you guys set them up, we knock them down, and it just works, man.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, guys, for me, like, I love when someone comes into my gym and says, like, I feel like it's a sign that I keep seeing your ads every time I get on Facebook. I'm just like, you're exactly right. It is a sign. Because people still don't know, right? Like, so many people still don't know, like, people like to say, like, oh, I've been in this town for X amount of years. And then when they start marketing with us, they're like, yeah, I'm getting people in that say that they didn't even know we existed, and we've been here for 10 plus years. I'm just like, yeah, because they weren't following you. They didn't know you. So now we're out fishing for them. So, guys, if you're listening to this episode and you're over 200 members, like reach out to us. Let's see if we can help you, right? Let's see what sort of that next step to get you from 200 to 250 or 300 to 350, because we want to see the gym industry crushing it. And like we've mentioned a couple of times in this episode, just seeing the industry improve as a whole. So, Jeff, thanks for taking time, buddy. We appreciate it. Great insight as usual. So, guys.
For sure, man. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Definitely. So, guys, remember, as always, tell a friend to tune in, and we will see you guys next week.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Gym Marketing Made Simple podcast with Blake Ruff and Sherman Merricks. We hope you enjoy. We believe marketing should increase revenue and not waste money. So book your free call today. Head on over to lassoframework.com. That's lassoframework.com and find the right words, get more customers, and increase your revenue. We'll see you here next time.